period, capital S period.
Right.
And so when you see that in government paperwork, that's what they're doing. They're saying the United States of America is the U.S., so the U.S. government is the Confederacy. So when you see that in print, that's what they're talking about. This is the code that you have to break out.
Okay, so walk us through. I'm going to delay the break. Walk us through what might be happening, say, for example, in California in the medical marijuana things, and how they're tricking the people into believing they have authority.
Well, the only thing they're doing is saying that the United States, that they have control over the United States, and they spell out the United States. And, of course, that's true, the United States being the territory that is owned by the United States of America.
Right.
Okay. So their real authority that's the real authority.
Right.
People confuse the United States with where they are, non-government land.
Which is non-governmental land.
Yeah, yeah.
So that place, that
the military bases are all owned by the United States of America.
But not this little medical marijuana place in.
But not where you live.
Or not where you live or I live.
The marijuana plant is selling their product.
It's not. We don't live in the United States.
You don't live in the United States, and it's very easy to start taking this thing apart because the whole system is based upon being convicted by a jury. And in order to be a juror, a federal juror, you've got to live on that land, federal land.
Huh.
Yeah, that's all jurors have to be of the land where the crime was committed.
So they claim
you can't import jurors from out of state to try people in another state.
So they claim that this hypothetical medical marijuana place in Los Angeles County is in the United States when it's not. So if they took these people to court, the jury would also have to live in the United States, which they don't. And
the states work the same way because what California has done is that in California it's not illegal to use medical marijuana provided you have a prescription.
Right.
So the government in California can't charge you with using marijuana if you satisfy their rules, because that's the law. But the law is really limited. That law is limited to federal territory, so it's in direct conflict with the federal law. So the federal law is supposed to be supreme.
Yeah.
But it is supreme, but it's limited to the federal territory.
Federal territory. And where is federal territory, just broad strokes?
Well, here in Los Angeles County, it's the Veterans Administration Hospital in West Los Angeles and the National Forest, Los Padres National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main areas of federal territory where the federal government owns the land.
That's the only place they have authority.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating, folks? So if President Obama or somebody in Washington comes out with a mandate or this or that, saying you got to do this or that, the only place they have real constitutional lawful authority is on territory owned by the United States of America, called the United States, which is federal land.
Yeah.
Period.
That's it.
Period. End of story. Okay, you sit with that for a second, and I know, just wrap up your head with duct tape, but, I mean, isn't it good to know this, even if you never do anything? California, Dr. Ed Rivera was nice enough to get up early this morning, got a little cup of coffee, get his brain going. How is this information going to be valued? I mean, what's the point of understanding? I mean, it's a dumb question. I mean, but how, in practical terms, how are some of your students using this information?
Well, they're actually learning the law.
Yeah.
We believe the law to be applicable to where we live. And all you have to do is learn that the law applies to a place where you don't live. Now, it's not a question of changing anything. It's just really understanding.
Understanding, yeah. You don't have to change anybody or convince anybody of anything, do you? No.
No, and you do that historically because it started that way, and it can't change. You can't become something that it hasn't started out as. And so George Washington was a dictator. Traditionally, what a dictator does is assumes the mantle of leadership of the country and takes power over the government, including the military. That's what the president is. He's in charge of the government and in charge of and the military and the head of the state.
And that's happened ever since George Washington, right? Every president.
Exactly. Before that, it was not like that. The government was separate. The government was barely acted at all because the people were in charge of their own lives. They governed themselves. Now you can't govern yourself because the government wants to step in and tell you what to do.
But it's
tell you how much soda to drink and when to drink it.
But it's not, and none of it's lawful.
It is lawful in where they own the property.
Oh, only where they own the property.
Yeah, so you have to give them their due.
Yeah, you can, guys. Yeah, but they don't own the property of
deny
some.
them their power, but their power is limited to what they own. Because when the king gave up the fight and the land that the king owned in America, he gave up his governmental power. Well, the governmental power was gone when he lost the war, and the troops were defeated. He lost his government power, but he retained the proprietary power over this land called the Northwest Territory. So that is what the government has been using to govern: proprietary power, power over land. But they only have power over the land that they own.
Fascinating. Now, you're trained as an attorney, right?
Yeah.
And you practiced law what years?
From 1972 until 2006.
And why do you no longer practice law officially in the courts?
Because you can't tell the people the truth and remain part of the government. Lawyers are part of the government.
They're part of the government. I thought they were just private guys out there practicing law.
Well, remember, the government is private because the Constitution, the Constitution of September 17, 1787, hasn't been adopted. You got to take an oath to obey this Constitution, and no one's done that. That's the basic trick.
That's the trick. So this 225 years ago yesterday, the Constitution of September 17, 1787, no president to this day have ever said, I adopt this Constitution.
Well, these people were very clever, and you don't adopt it just by saying adopt it. You adopt it by taking an oath to support this Constitution, not the Constitution of the United States. What George Washington does is adopt a Constitution that is different from this Constitution, from the Constitution of September 17th, 1787. What he's doing, he's adopting the Constitution of the property that is owned by the United States of America. He's preserving, protecting, and defending the property that belongs to the United States of America.
And that's all Barack Obama or anybody else have ever done.
That's right. When you see him on TV taking an oral oath, what's an oral oath? You can take oral oaths all day, and it doesn't matter. All you've said is, I promise. Yeah, sure, I promise. I'll promise again. Yeah, I messed up, but I'll promise again. That's all he does. That's all presidents do, is promise to do stuff and never accomplish anything because they're not bound.
They're not bound.
By a written document. You have to sign it, and that's never been done. No one's ever done it. No member of Congress, no judge has ever have been bound to support this Constitution. It's just a matter of words, and all the words are in plain sight and been there for 225 years.
So you can't, people say, oh, we should string these guys up and put them in the Hague and try them for treason and all that. Sounds to me like no, because they've never done anything wrong, because it's just an illusion. That's
right. They're getting away with murder because there's no law against it.
Now, folks, in case you think Well, why are you talking about this here? 2012, look at the Northwest Ordinance 225 years ago. It doesn't matter. These are just old pieces of paper. Well, not so. Right here in my hands, I have the United States Code, 2006 edition, right? And right in the very front of it, and this is the United States Code is the real deal, right? This is what they go by. Everybody goes by.
That's their printed law, and you open up the cover and you look in the law, and this is the law.
This is the law.
This is the law.
And guess what they have at the very beginning is the 4 organic laws of the United States. Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Northwest Territory Ordinance, and Constitution of the United States. Right in the United States Code. I mean, if the Northwest Ordinance and the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence didn't matter, why would they have it in the United States Code?
It tells you where the law is the law. And that's really what no one wants you to know. Because they want to govern just by
everybody, right?
And force.
Okay, let's take this email. Good morning, Patrick. Would you please ask Dr. Rivera? These are several questions. We'll take them one at a time. What are the geographical boundaries of the United States of America? Geographical boundaries of the United States of America.
Well, it's the 50 states plus what they own or they control. So it's the United States of America is everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Including Virgin Islands, Guam, and all that.
That's right.
But it's just geographical. It's got nothing to do with.
It's got nothing to do with power.
With power. That's called the United States of America.
Yeah.
What? And his second question: what are the territorial boundaries of the United States?
That's what the United States of America owns.
Okay.
So if it's got a fence around it, or it's big and like the Virgin Islands, and it's all the Virgin Islands, and it's all the Puerto Rico, they control that because they're the government there.
They own it.
Yeah. They may have a lesser government. They have a state government, but that state government is operating under the auspices of the federal government, the United States of America.
Do the people, free inhabitants in the United States of America, are they the ultimate owners of Virgin Island and Guam and also the bases, or does this government own it?
If the government were to be totally unraveled, it would go back to the people, and they would have to figure out another government to own collectively
okay.
What was owned before by the Confederacy.
Third question: what's the difference between U.S. capital U dot S and U.S. without the dots, and United States and United States of America capitalized? So that's pretty complicated, but he's got United States with the capital U, capital S, and the United States small U and S.
Well, I don't think the lowercase u and s mean anything.
Doesn't matter.
No, that doesn't matter. But the capital U period, capital S period,
right,
stands for the United States of America. When you see it in regulations or you see it in the law books, because they have to make a distinction between the United States, capital U, and then the lowercase spelling of the states and the United.
But when we see capital U, capital S, we're tricked into believing that that's the territory that is owned and governed by the United States of America.
Yeah, so
okay.
That's what that usually really means, is that it's the United States of America. You can see that in the easiest way to look at it is in the passport regulations, the passport law, and the passport regulations for getting a passport. Because what the passport law says is that the only people who are entitled to a passport are U.S. nationals, U period, S period, nationals.
That's the only people entitled to a passport?
Yeah, well, that's everybody.
That's everybody.
Everybody that's in the United States of America, including the people in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So, everybody there, that's the free inhabitants. All the free inhabitants are entitled to passports.
So free inhabitants, you and I are U.S.
But when
nationals.
when they make their regulations, it makes it appear as